Mark sat in his favorite armchair, a thick book resting on his lap, though he hadn't turned a page in the last 20 minutes. His mind was elsewhere, trapped in the whirlwind of emotions that had consumed his home in the past few weeks. Across from him, Linda sat with her knitting needles, the rhythmic clicks offering a deceptive sense of normalcy. She was pretending to be focused, but he knew her thoughts mirrored his. Their son, Jason, had just announced his divorce. After 10 years of marriage, he and Emily were calling it quits. Mark exhaled deeply and looked at his wife. "I just don't get it, Linda. They were happy, weren't they?" Linda sighed, setting her knitting aside. "We thought they were, but we don't see what happens behind closed doors." It wasn't just the shock of the divorce. It was the chaos that followed. The late-night phone calls, Jason's frustrations spilling into every conversation, and their 2 grandkids caught in the middle. And the hardest question lingered between them. Should they step in? For decades, Mark and Linda had dedicated their lives to their family. They had watched Jason take his first steps, guided him through his awkward teenage years, and cheered when he got married. As parents, their instinct was always to help. But now, helping wasn't so simple. Jason wasn't just their little boy anymore. He was a grown man, a father himself. He needed support, but was it their place to interfere in his decisions? "I just feel like we should do something," Mark muttered, rubbing his temple. "Maybe talk to Emily, get them to reconsider." Linda gave him a sad smile. Would that really help? Or would it just make things worse? Mark had seen it happen with friends. Some parents jumped in trying to mediate, only to be accused of taking sides. Others stayed out of it completely and regretted not offering advice. Their friends from church, the Johnsons, had nearly lost their relationship with their son when they pressured him to stay in a failing marriage. Meanwhile, his co-worker at the auto shop stopped speaking to his daughter because he blamed her for leaving her husband. Mark didn't want to be either of those parents. So what was the right thing to do? One evening, as Linda was putting away dishes, she hesitated and finally said, "I keep thinking about the kids." Mark nodded. Their grandchildren, Lily and Jack, were only 6 and 8. Too young to understand the complexities of divorce, but old enough to feel its weight. "They're going to need stability," Linda continued. "No matter what happens between Jason and Emily, we have to be there for them." Mark knew she was right. While they couldn't control the divorce, they could control how they responded to it. They could be a safe place for their grandkids, a steady presence when everything else felt uncertain. As they navigated this new challenge, Mark realized something unexpected. This wasn't just about Jason's marriage. It was about their own. When you're in your 50s, marriage takes on a different shape. The passion of youth settles into companionship. The chaos of raising kids is replaced by quieter, deeper conversations. And sometimes you find yourself asking new questions. Are we still growing together? Have we learned from our past mistakes? If we were in their shoes, what would we have done differently? Watching Jason's marriage fall apart made them reflect on their own bond, on the years they had built together, on the fights they had survived, and on the love that had kept them strong. Mark reached across the table and took Linda's hand. "No matter what happens with them, I'm glad we made it through." Linda smiled softly. "Me too." In the end, Mark and Linda chose a middle path. They didn't try to fix Jason's marriage, nor did they distance themselves. They simply made sure he knew they were there, without judgment, without pressure. They invited Emily over with the kids, making sure she still felt like family. listened to Jason vent, offering advice only when he asked. They reminded their grandkids that no matter what happened, they were loved. Most importantly, they focused on what they could control, being parents and grandparents, not judges or rescuers. And maybe, just maybe, that was the best way to help. This story reflects the delicate balance of love, support, and letting go that many parents face when their children's marriages fall apart. It resonates with older audiences, not just as parents, but as individuals who have lived through their own marital journeys. Would you like to refine any part of the story, add more emotional depth, or adjust it to better fit a specific audience style? Mark and Linda's heartbreak wasn't just about their son's marriage ending. It was about watching him struggle and feeling powerless to fix it. As parents, they had spent years protecting Jason from scraped knees and childhood disappointments. But now, his wounds were invisible, and there was no simple way to ease his pain. Linda couldn't stop thinking about Emily. She wasn't just Jason's wife. She had been part of their family for a decade. Did a divorce mean she had to disappear from their lives? Could they maintain a relationship with her without hurting Jason? More importantly, how could they ensure their grandchildren still felt the sense of family, even if their parents were no longer together, even after decades of marriage? Mark and Linda didn't always see eye to eye on how to handle their son's divorce. Mark felt they should step in, encourage Jason to fight for his marriage, and remind him that love required work. Linda, on the other hand, believed that forcing a failing marriage to continue wouldn't bring happiness. The tension between them was real, but in the end, their mutual respect and love helped them find common ground in supporting their son without imposing their own beliefs. Mark and Linda realized that life never stopped changing. Jason's divorce didn't just affect him. It altered the rhythm of their own lives. Family dinners felt different. Holidays became more complicated, and they had to redefine what family gatherings meant. But over time, they learned that even in change, love remained constant if they were willing to adapt. Watching Jason go through a divorce made Mark and Linda reflect on their own journey. Marriage wasn't just about love. It was about patience, forgiveness, and a willingness to grow together. And sometimes, the most powerful lessons weren't spoken. They were demonstrated through the way parents handled their own marriage.